Okay, I think I've got the live stream working this time. I apologize, but thank you everyone for your patience and welcome to Theater at Home's reading of The Margaret Ghost. I will be welcoming the cast back into our Zoom meeting in just a moment. But first, I just wanted to let you know a tiny little bit about the history of this production at Theater at First. I saw this play in 1984 in a living room at Radcliffe College. And then after I founded Theater at First, we went looking for it, and it turned out that it had never been performed again. But I was able to find the playwright, and she very graciously gave me the script in a Word document. It's never been published. And we were able to produce it in 2006. And then 2010 was the bicentennial of Margaret Fuller's birth. And there were a lot of events in the area celebrating that anniversary. And we were invited by the Bicentennial Committee to revive our production. And we were able to do that with our entire original cast. And now it's been 10 years since then. And the Margaret Ghost still haunts many of us. And Santiago Rivas, who plays Angelo Osoli, suggested that we could do a reading as a 10th anniversary reunion. And that's what you're about to see. So I hope you'll enjoy the show, and welcome to the Margaret Ghost. Act 1. Margaret's home in Boston, 1844. Margaret Fuller is lying on a sofa in the darkened room. She is dressed simply, but for the luxurious, exotic flower in her primly pulled back hair. Anna Ward enters, turning up the lamp.
Ah!
Oh, sorry. I thought you were still upstairs. Nora told me you were resting. Should I turn the lamp down? No one is here yet.
No, leave it. I'm tired of the dark.
I don't know how you stand these headaches.
Rather than another like this morning, I'd invite a flock of vultures to nest upon my opened brain. But there is something wonderful about pure physical agony, isn't there? What I want from life suddenly becomes so clear and simple. I want to stop hurting. And then to actually feel it lift, those first few moments without pain. Oh, I ask you, is there any moment in life as good as that? That sweet pause of health between two vomitings?
Margaret, that's disgusting, frankly.
Is it? But it's true. To be reminded like that of the simple goodness of health, of life. Oh, God is generous with us, Anna. Grace is everywhere. Oh.
It's not that we don't all love your originality of your metaphors. Do you think we would trudge through Cambridge in the dead of winter if it wasn't that you dazzled? But
Dazzle? I'm not interested in dazzling, though I admit to it. You make me sound like an entertainer. These are conversations, Anna, not shows. We all talk. I only inspire.
of course. And we all appreciate your helping us express ourselves. I'm just saying that we come to hear you, the excitement of what you will say next. You know as well as I that some of the ladies there, if you did not curtail them, we would all be asleep.
Curtail? What do you mean, curtail? And if I do, I should not have. Was she hurt?
You had no choice, Margaret. She goes on and on without a point. Dread gripped our hearts whenever she rose from her chair.
It's from lack of practice. When are women ever encouraged to speak their minds publicly, or even aloud? It's for that I am so proud of these conversations. It's the best thing I've ever done.
And why I don't understand your inviting men this time.
It's an experiment. We'll see.
We'll see that they'll assert themselves and dogmatize and dominate everything.
Are they here yet? I mean, any of the men?
No, I told you. I'm here early. Have you been reading in the dark? No wonder you get headaches.
Not even Waldo? I want to show him something. He said he would come early.
Not even Waldo. What is it?
A poem. You want to read it?
I don't know. The last time you gave me a poem you had been reading in the dark, I almost got thrown out of school.
That was Sophia's fault.
Be fair. She gave you every chance. She pleaded with you and prayed for guidance.
And the Lord advised her to turn us in for reading Byron?
She begged you on her knees to throw away the book.
Yes, but it was too exciting the way she put it. Only give him up and my lips are sealed.
Layla lives in the east, where the sun is hot and where fragrant fruits hang from the boughs. It sounds French. An altar stands at the edge of a grove, and down a slope, sun-warmed and moist, the bank of the river. Layla wears no clothes. She dances around the altar, her white body glistening like alabaster. She's naked.
It's hot in the east.
Stirred by the hot currents of her blood, Layla's step. Where did you get this poem?
Guess.
One of the pagans.
She is not a pagan.
A woman. That French woman. The one who smokes and wears trousers and worse.
George Sand?
Yes.
No. Me.
You what?
I wrote it.
Layla wears no clothes as she dances around the altar.
You are missing the point of it.
Her white body glistening like alabaster?
It's a metaphor.
Oh. So you mean she's not really glistening?
Of course not. I'm giving it to Waldo for the magazine.
You're showing this to Waldo?
He'll understand. I trust him.
Don't show this to Waldo, Margaret.
I will. When it's finished. I've been trying to work on it all morning. I think that's what brought on the headache.
You're ruining your health by working so hard.
Hard? I spend more time staring out my window than my cat. I don't seem to have the patience for sustained effort. I think once you conceive an idea, the labor of it ought to be compulsory, like childbirth. When you conceive there is no turning back.
It can only kill you.
But there is no turning back. Wouldn't you have rather stopped after the first pain if you could have?
I think I would rather have read a novel, yes.
You see, free will is deadly for creation. Oh, what am I to do? Surely there was never a great sculptor who did not love to chip the marble, never a great artist who did not love to brush the paint across the canvas.
Well, that reminds me. Did I tell you I had a great portrait done of me when we were in Italy? We were just walking through Cathedral one day, and this mad young artist came up to us and actually begged Sam to let me sit for him.
Yes, better than writing 50 poems would be to inspire one. Of course, one honest look in the mirror usually has a way of getting me back to the rear of the pen. My face conspires against my laziness.
Oh, what nonsense. You have a very nice face. And you have wonderful eyes. Everybody says so. Did Ellen tell you about La Scala? The Italians are really idiotic. All I did was walk down the aisle to my seat, And row by row, people started getting up and applauding me. You think me vain?
But Anna, you are so sorely tempted. Just as the generosity of a person cannot be determined until one knows how much she has to give, her vanity cannot be determined without considering how much she has to admire. An ugly woman can look into a mirror only once to your 10 times and still be much vainer per capita.
I don't know. On the whole, I think I would rather be good than beautiful. Don't laugh. When God sent down his angel to destroy an entire city, he did not say, "You may spare the people if you find 10 beautiful women among them, but 10 good ones."
What he said, Anna, was one beautiful woman or 10 good ones.
You're making fun of me.
A little, just enough to keep from envying you. Can you imagine if I have to add envy to all my other sins? My immortal soul would burn for sure.
Sophia would be on her knees praying for you every minute.
He would not allow it.
Who? God?
Hawthorne. He would never let her pray for me. He loathes me, Anna.
You are always imagining that people loathe you. You think you're being persecuted whenever somebody disagrees with you.
Sophia Hawthorne. I still can't get used to that. Were you surprised to hear they'd married?
They were certainly engaged long enough.
I know, but it's hard to think of her as married, isn't it?
No,
I mean, Sophia, who was always so. Remember at school how she would be incessantly clutching at her nightgown?
remember that wagon ride when we could not get her to jump down? She just stood there, pulling at her dress until finally the poor driver lost patience and began shouting at her, "Will you get down here, lady? Legs is no treat for me."
So, it is very hard to think of her as married, isn't it?
No.
Why do you keep saying that?
Saying what? What are you trying to say? What is it, Margaret? Have I lived to see the Boston Sybil tongue-tied?
What is it like
What?
being married?
What is it like?
I mean, technically.
Oh. Oh. Why are you asking me?
Who can I ask? And I cannot stand being so ignorant.
Well, get a book or something.
Are there any?
Well, there must be. In French or something. Try Harvard Library.
Harvard? Waldo had to circulate a petition just to get me in there for my Goethe research. Can you imagine me asking to see their books on what? What would I even look them up under?
There are certain parts of the Bible.
The Bible? And Jacob knew his wife? You have to admit it leaves certain gaps in one's grasp of the subject. Besides, how well could he have known her? He did not even find out till morning that he had the wrong woman in his arms. I mean, didn't they talk? After waiting 7 years for her, didn't he have anything to say?
Look, Margaret, this is just not something I can talk about.
Even in Shakespeare, it is so easy to trick a man that way. Is silence customary? Mandatory? Does the act temporarily stun the organs of speech? It is so demeaning, this not knowing.
It is just not something people talk about. I have never heard it talked about.
Oh, please. I am 35 years old and will likely take my chastity to my grave. Oh, I don't mind that. I believe in chastity. I honor it. The only sensualists I have ever known have all been stupid. But I simply cannot bear the ignorance. The ignorance, Anna. I know Latin, Greek, the higher mathematics, the Hindu Vedas, all the works of Thomas Jefferson. I can quote you any verse from the Bible. I can translate Goethe better than anyone at Harvard. And I have no more idea than a 10-year-old of the most elemental process of life. Anna, I just want to know.
Margaret, Not even my own mother. Not even on the night before. Can you promise you won't tell anyone?
I promise.
Anyone.
You have my word. Well?
You want me to start?
How could I start? I don't know anything.
Well, what do you want to know?
What does a man look like?
Look like?
You know.
What do you want to know that for?
I do not want to die without knowing what half the human race looked like.
Why not? I will.
Really?
You mean you thought that, like Layla,
Well, not exact. I mean, well, sort of.
night clothes?
Excuse me.
Night clothes?
Oh. Couldn't you just approximate?
No, I don't know what they look like. Nobody knows what they look like.
Does a man actually. I mean, does he. Is there actual. I
Yes.
mean, what?
Yes.
How?
What do you mean, how?
I mean, logistically. How does. What do you do with your legs?
Oh, for God's sake.
Do you enjoy it?
Well, it's not unpleasant once you get used to it. But I really do not see what they see in it, if that's what you mean. They like it awfully.
I've heard that.
Awfully. I will tell you that much.
I know that much. The only thing you tell me is the one thing I already know.
Well, it's the most important thing.
How often is it done?
You know, I bet they're here already.
How long does it take?
Yes, that's them. They're here. I hear them.
Does he talk to you? Is there conversation? Anna.
I can't. I just can't.
I just want to know.
And you will when you marry. It would not be such a terrible idea. What's so noble about being an old maid?
I never said it was noble.
I'm sorry. Margaret, listen to me. Do you want to know what's really important? What you're really ignorant about? You're always so too
To what?
to everything. You're always saying what you think.
Well, I would not want to appear rational and awaken their disgust.
Simply cannot take criticism. You know that?
Oh, come, Anna, you can't be serious.
Can't I? Do you know what Charlie Sumner said about you?
What do I care what Charlie Sumner said? What?
Nothing. Just be more delicate.
This is not honorable advice. You know it is not. I could not bear to share my life with a man with whom I could not share my deepest thoughts.
You want to be honorable or you want to be happy?
I don't want to be happy on those terms.
There are no other terms. There are no other. They're starting to arrive. Margaret,
Yes?
they are here. Nora's letting them in.
Yes, I'm ready. I just need to gather my thoughts. Come upstairs with me a little.
They're not here. She's not here.
Really, she's not usually that considerate.
Belovedest.
Sorry.
This household is so disorganized.
Look, love, Flaxman's designs for Dante. They're wonderful. Come look at them with me.
Not right now, belovedest.
Come sit with me then.
You wicked man, I will not. What if someone should walk in?
Come, I say. If I am to be plucked from my own hearth to listen to that silly woman chatter, I should at least be rewarded. What? Do you defy me, woman? Don't you know what is done in Turkey to disobedient wives?
No, but I don't think their lives are happy even when they're very obedient.
And why is that?
When their husbands get tired of them, they can just go ahead and take another wife.
And you don't think that's fair?
Oh, I suppose you think that is a wonderful system.
Wonderful. But as for me, I will take one lovely, unspoiled New England girl to 50 Turkish houris.
Which girl is that?
The girl whose love has recreated me. The girl who is the dearest thing in life to me.
That's very pretty. But what's a houri?
A Turkish coin.
It's not either. It's one of those wretched creatures who live in harems, isn't it? And whose minds have turned to rot from boredom and inactivity.
And exactly where did you learn so much about the minds of Turkish women?
From one of Margaret's conversations.
It is not enough she passes herself off as an expert on American women. She now must lecture on Turkish harems.
She says the women there spend their entire lives in 2 or 3 rooms. Some of them never get out.
What? Not even for one of Margaret's conversations?
She says they're treated more like animals than people. She cried just thinking about them.
It's a depraved and evil way of life, but I cannot think of a more ridiculous spectacle than a group of New England bluestockings sitting around over tea discussing Turkish harems. I really would prefer you didn't go to them, beloved.
Am I to be the only cultured woman in all of Boston to miss one of Margaret's conversations?
Sophia, no one within a 5-mile radius of her voice can miss one of Margaret's conversations.
She's wonderful, belovedest, really. She just sits quietly for several minutes, then gets up and speaks about beauty, about truth, about life. It's magical.
Today, I am going to talk about me, Margaret.
Oh,
I have so many dazzling qualities, it will be impossible to deal with them all in this one series of conversations.
hush, belovedest.
I have met, as you know, most of the great minds of my generation, but can honestly say I have come across no intellect comparable to my own.
Please, what if she comes in?
I am, of course, a great humbug, with some wit and culture, naturally, else I could not be so great a humbug.
Greeley, good to see you. How's the trip
Oh.
to New York?
Hawthorne, is it? Emerson. Why is it so dark in here? It's because she drinks all that damn coffee. I've told her 1,000,000 times not to pour that garbage down her throat.
Margaret declines being lectured on the food or beverage she sees fit to take.
She may be the smartest woman in America, Emerson, but about some things, she's an idiot.
But are you brave enough to say it to her face?
No.
Nathaniel Hawthorne, Horace Greeley.
We've met.
Have we? Of course, the story writer. Native literature is very important for a new country.
That's very reassuring.
I plan to start giving it some attention in my newspaper.
My wife.
Mrs. Hawthorne?
We were just looking at Flaxman's designs for Dante. They're wonderful. Would you care to...
Maybe later. Where is everyone? Are we early?
Hasn't the maid even taken your coat?
Greeley was afraid of its being left unguarded.
It may not look like much, but that fabric is never going to wear out. Look at that. I bought it off a Swedish sailor 10 years ago for $1.50.
Really?
It's an old secret of the gods that they come in low disguises.
Excuse me?
It's the vulgar great who come bedecked with gold and jewels. Real kings hide away their crowns and affect a plain and poor exterior. In the Norse legends of our ancestors, Odin dwells in a hut and patches boats. In the Hindu legends, Hari dwells a peasant among peasants. In the Greek legend, Apollo lodges with shepherds. Jesus, of course, was born in a barn, and his friends were fishermen.
Christ, I'm going to run you for president, Emerson. Does he always talk that way? Better yet, how about a job on the Tribune?
Thank you. No, I'm not wise enough yet for absolute power.
No, 30,000 circulation weekdays, 60,000 on Sunday, and just the beginning. Genius like yours deserves better than this incomprehensible journal you've got up here that no one even reads.
Of course we read it, Mr. Greeley. What do you think we do with it?
Emerson reads Channing, Channing reads Alcott, Alcott reads Emerson. You all agree with each other anyway. Now, what do you say, Emerson? 60,000 readers, 60000.
I hate numbers, Greeley. Don't quote them at me. Man is no longer reckoned in the particular, but in the gross, in the hundreds, in the thousands.
Listen, philosopher, a good cheap daily is the idea of the century. Until I started publishing, the common man never even saw a newspaper, let alone read one.
Don't talk to me of the common man.
You're severely limiting my range of conversation here, Emerson. What can I talk about? The Harvard Divinity School? The 12 people who read your magazine?
Talk to me of the one New York shopkeeper, the one New England farmer or fisherman or villager who keeps faith with his own soul, and you can keep your 60,000 and your parties and your caucuses and your coalitions, and most of all, you can keep that congregation of snorers and sleepwalkers known as the Harvard Divinity School.
All I know is there's a whole continent to be settled out there, to which Boston's not the nipple on the tit, excuse me,
No,
and
please.
settled it will be by crude, vulgar, fearless men who think the transcendentalists are a railroad.
They can have spit and tobacco juice dripping from their beards for all I care, but let them be men, Greeley. Men fit for freedom, not herds, not masses, not...
They have to be made fit, damn it.
But not by telling them how to vote.
Shit, Emerson. Excuse me.
No, really, I understand.
They don't read Schopenhauer, they read the Tribune.
Indeed, the journalists are the new kings.
King's my ass. Sorry.
No, really, it's... I think I'll go find Margaret.
God knows, no one respects the purity of women more than I do. But if we have to send them off to their rooms every time we open our mouths...
There's a natural delicacy in women.
Well, thank God Margaret doesn't have it. At least you can have a normal conversation with her.
I said in women.
Margaret has a grace of her own.
Oh, don't apologize for her, Emerson. It's her lack of natural delicacy I've always liked her for. And her sharp tongue.
Ah, another devotee.
I burn no incense on any human altar. But I like her. When she was visiting my wife and me in New York last year, a party of us went to the symphony. Remember, Margaret? And the woman in front of you kept jabbering all through Beethoven. It was the mayor's wife. No one knew what to do.
How are you, my dear friend?
Can you hear each other all right, madam? She says. Shall I have them lower the music?
Who is this man, Waldo?
I thought he was a friend of yours.
Mine? Whom do I know whose beard insists on taking the longest route possible from one ear to the next? What exactly does it have against that sweet, homely face of yours that it should avoid it so?
Picky runs into your room every morning and cries to see it empty.
How I miss that sweet, bright child of yours. Every morning he'd come jumping into my bed, insisting we count to 1,000,000,000 billion trillion. Ready? One! How I loved that one! Loud and clear, and without the crippling suspicion that we might not live to reach our number. One! It has been my mainstay on particularly bad days. Mr. Hawthorne, why are you lurking in that corner? Come into the open air. Do you know Mr. Greeley?
We've met.
Mr. Hawthorne's great-great-great-great-grandfather and my great-great-great-great-grandfather came over on the same boat, hewing down the forests together and whipping the witches through the streets of Salem.
New England is full of Puritans, Mr. Greeley, but Miss Fuller and I are the most credentialed ones you'll find.
Your credentials don't fool me, Mr. Hawthorne. All of Italy seethes beneath that Saxon crust.
God, I like the woman who speaks her mind.
And you?
Uh, yes, what seethes beneath my crust?
With you, there is quite enough seething on the surface. Can you imagine? The man wants to save the nation and can't even tie his own cravat. And you, dear friend?
That a girl, Margaret. Let him have it.
You are simply the finest, the wisest, the most honorable man I have ever met.
Just let him have it.
Now we will never be able to keep your nearsightedness a secret.
Margaret, I've been chasing you from one room to another. Margaret?
Sophia.
That's a relief. For a minute, I thought you had taken a vow of silence.
I think it was a vow of no silence.
When one's ideal of female eloquence is a Carmelite nun, I may be thought to talk too much.
God. Emerson, I withdraw my offer. Margaret, it's you who must come to New York.
What do you take me for? Do I look to you a woman who claws her way to the top over the fallen bodies of her friends? No, Waldo, I will never take the food from your mouth.
Thank you.
I mean it. Come to New York and write for the Tribune.
God.
Dear friend, I'm very touched.
Then come. I'm serious. 1 week on Nassau Street, and I guarantee your headaches will at least be in a good cause.
Horace, I'm overwhelmed, really, but
5 columns a week, and you're never to use the word soul, except in case of accident, as in sole survivor. Agreed? Is it a bargain?
Margaret can't go to New York.
Why not?
Because I can't stand packing.
Why can't she go? Because we don't sit around all day examining our consciences and discussing the Icelandic sagas while the nation's liberties are slowly being hacked away before our very eyes?
What good are paper liberties if we make serfs of ourselves? If we're slaves to custom and public opinion? If we dare not do one true or noble thing because our neighbors won't approve?
I can't guarantee a man's courage, only his rights before the law and the power of the vote.
There's only one law a man should answer to, and the only power that's worth a damn is moral power.
Yeah, tell it to the bully boys in the precincts. God, you tire me, you intellectuals. Where do you people live?
Mr. Greeley, I do think you're...
Even between Concord and Harvard, you must use the public streets. Do you know what's going on out there? The unemployed are rioting in the streets of New York. The Indians are being systematically destroyed. Young boys are being sent to Mexico to die for a wicked, shameful cause, not to mention that in the year of our Lord 1845, there is slavery in our country. Real slavery, Emerson, real. People owning human beings. I'm not speaking figuratively here.
Who in this room supports slavery? It is an abomination.
But so is mob action, and some of the abolitionists have
You should be out there in the wards, all of you, pounding on doors.
And rounding men up like cattle.
You know what the trouble is with you, you poets and philosophers? You think you're a protected class, all of you.
Like women and children.
Exactly.
Protected? The poet. To descend into the wild mysteries of human nature, the dark horrors of the heart. What could be more terrifying than that?
A few choice New York streets at dusk.
You're being unfair, Mr. Greeley. We are in the vanguard of every progressive social movement in the country. The abolition of slavery, peace with Mexico, decent treatment for the Indians, socialism.
Socialism? In Brahmin, Boston?
Brook Farm was the model for every experiment in communal farming.
Brook Farm? Brook Farm failed miserably. And it's no wonder. Instead of pulling the weeds, you probably tried to talk them into renunciation.
Why are you looking at me? It's Mr. Hawthorne who traded in his pen for a pitchfork.
And changed from holding the mirror up to nature to holding nature up entirely.
Nonsense. We were excellent farmers. The danger was all in the opposite direction. We became as cloddish as the earth we tilled. If it wasn't for Miss Fuller, who occasionally dropped in to remind us about Goethe and the meaning of life, we should have become irreversibly stupid.
It sounds like you regret your experiment in communal living.
Regret? He's gotten at least 3 novels from it. Admit it, Mr. Hawthorne. All that time you were sitting in that corner, pretending to be reading, never once turning a page. You were getting us all down.
Oh, I'm not sure it was I who was getting us all down, Miss Fuller.
Still, so much energy and hope and money, and for nothing to come of it.
Nothing? A great social scheme is like a great work of art. We don't ask what King Lear accomplished, really. We don't ask what it changes in the world. It lights up the soul. It increases the spiritual wealth of the universe.
Oh, has it ever been more movingly expressed?
What did he say?
He said, "The lives of certain men increase the human value of us all."
I think you're all raving mad.
He said that on that day when God decides to rid the heavens of all the galaxies not worth the space they occupy, I am well rid of that one and that one and that, and scanning thus the universe amid a frightful holocaust of dying planets, his finger lights on Earth and hesitates. Emerson lives there.
With his finger pointing back at me.
Excuse me, I hope I'm not intruding. The others are in...
James, good to see you. Glad you could come after all. Is my wife with you?
Yes, she's inside, helping the maid set up the chairs.
We should probably all go in. Margaret, are you ready to start?
Yes.
What is the topic tonight?
Women in mythology and literature, the quest for our identity.
That's provocative.
Margaret, I want you to meet a friend of my wife's from New York, Mr. James Nathan.
Mr. Nathan?
I have looked forward to this evening.
He works on Wall Street, but he's very poetical. If you come to New York, he agrees to hang on your every word.
You good at hanging, Mr. Nathan?
It depends from what ledge, Miss Fuller.
End of scene 1. Scene 2. 2 hours later. Margaret's talk is over, and her guests are socializing inside.
Waldo!
I'm sorry. I didn't realize you were... I saw you leave. I wanted to apologize for that remark.
Which one?
That you couldn't speak for the feelings of women being in a sex by yourself.
There's man, there's woman, and there is Margaret Fuller.
I'm sorry.
You know, I don't mind your insults, Mr. Hawthorne, if you would only keep them simple enough so that Sophia doesn't have to have them incessantly explained.
I didn't mean it as an insult exactly, but I could see that you were hurt.
You are mistaken.
Damn it, Margaret. There is not one woman in 1,000 like you. You have to admit that. How can you possibly sympathize with the feelings of a normal woman?
But you can. I wonder why you come.
Are you asking me not to? I pray reconsider. Adam, cast out of paradise, could not experience so great a sense of loss.
Don't patronize me. Object to me if you want, but don't patronize me.
I wouldn't dare object to you, Miss Fuller.
Why not? Are you a coward? Shall I have to get to work embroidering a large scarlet C for your bosom?
Not too large, please. I do not have your ample letter space.
No. Perhaps you could wear it somewhere else, then. Mr. Hawthorne, why are you always staring at me?
Do I stare at you?
You know you do. Not since Argus has anyone been favored with more eye shot than I get from you. I think you must be planning a great exposure of me.
No, though the idea is not without its appeal.
What then? What are you staring at? Are you trying to detect the marks of an old stoning? Now there was a society that knew how to deal with its witches and adulteresses.
Well, I'm prepared to think you capable of sorcery, but as for the other.
Be prepared to think me capable of anything. I claim a kinship with the most degraded of my sex.
Oh, come, Miss Fuller. If anything, you're a woman of nil repute.
When your taste obviously runs more to a boar with a heart of gold. That was unfair. I'm sorry.
Her love has swept dark shadows from my life. Please don't laugh at her.
Forgive me. I only laugh at Sophia to keep from envying her.
Envying her?
Yes. Her sitting by the fire listening to your stories. Her being the first person in the world to hear out loud how Hester Prynne met Arthur Dimmesdale in the wilderness.
She hated that chapter.
Hated it? That moment in the wilderness when that fallen, anguished woman looks into the eyes of the man she loves still, loves beyond shame, beyond life, beyond the hope of heaven. And suddenly, instinctively, she throws off her starched white cap, and all her lush, abundant hair falls. Oh,
It was the first thing I noticed about you when I met you, the tropical flower in your hair. I used to marvel how fresh they were.
I get them from the greenhouse every morning.
As if Scheherazade had been born a pilgrim.
Am I intruding?
Why do you loathe me?
I don't loathe you.
Am I intruding?
What? Oh, no, please come in.
Miss Fuller, you must allow me to say something.
I insist upon it. You can't expect me to do all the talking.
I consider you the greatest woman of our time.
Is that all? Mr. Emerson was remarking just the other day that it might very well be for all time, of all women who ever lived.
He said that?
I'm often thought rather abrupt because I don't like hiding my thoughts.
He really said that?
Oh, more, much more. The only mind worth considering. To know you is to mark an epoch in one's life.
Der Geist unseres Handelns ist im Wichtigsten.
Excuse me?
I heard you were very interested in Goethe.
Very. I had planned at one time to write the definitive biography.
Will you let me read it when it's finished?
Finished? One needs a muse, Mr. Nathan, especially in Boston, where even thoughts do not mill about unchaperoned. Mine, in great disgust, is long ago departed.
Don't speak that way. You, who have so much talent.
But I have not the confidence of it. Mr. Hawthorne now could go for a lifetime without publishing so much as a semicolon and still reek of it. Smell that, Mr. Nathan? It's the confidence of genius.
Perhaps I could give you this confidence, Miss Fuller.
Leave her alone, Nathan. She's happier without it.
Quite right. A woman's place is in the poem.
May I say something, Miss Fuller? I can't accept.
Accept it, Mr. Nathan. Accept it. Let us dwell happily on what Miss Fuller obviously does have a genius for, and let her be.
You must not give up, Miss Fuller. You really must not. It would be too great a loss to literature.
In more ways than one, for I am sure that if I persist, Mr. Hawthorne means to write me up in one of his books, as a lesson to all women who would stray the first part of a hair from the beaten track. But now that I am being so reasonable about my place, it will make him a very poor tragedy.
It's a comedy you spare me, not a tragedy. Surely, of all the possible ways to fall, a scribbling female is the most ridiculous. Would you really have wanted to count yourself among that tribe? The minister goes a-wooing, the adventures of little Marjorie, and all that cloying host of imbecilities that our publishing houses can't spew out fast enough because there is a nation of nincompoops to read them.
I am not writing The Adventures of Little Marjorie.
Oh, what is the title?
Layla.
It sounds exotic.
She is a dancer.
It sounds wonderful.
Of course, it's still a fragment.
Is that it?
This? Well, yes.
Won't you read us a little?
Layla lives in the east, where the sun is hot, and where fragrant fruits hang from the boughs. An altar stands at the edge of a grove, and down a slope, sun-warmed and moist, the bank of the river. Layla wears no clothes, as it's just a fragment. I'm still struggling with the form. The old ones won't do, and the new ones are still a little foreign to me, like my heroine.
For your own soul's sake, let it stay foreign.
That sounds so ominous.
Just honest advice. There is in every human heart enough to make us shudder.
Whatever's in my heart, I want to know it.
You don't.
Don't speak for me.
The cost is terrible, believe me.
May I say something?
Nothing but the truth will do for me.
Margaret, there are wildernesses. No decent woman.
Oh, we are too good for authorship, is that it?
You are better than we are, yes.
You glorify for me the kind of self-delusion you would scorn for yourself that you were scorning just 5 minutes ago.
If I understand this properly...
Scorning you? The purity of women is what keeps us sane. Without women, there is no faith, no affection. Would you do away with all that's best in human life?
Who, me? Did I say that? Did I say that?
Not at all.
Without her example, men wouldn't even know how to love one another. Man is a wretch without woman.
What are we talking about here? All I did was read a poem.
Margaret, listen.
The whole weight of Western civilization is suddenly dependent on a fragment of a poem in my pocket?
I would be your friend and give you honest counsel.
I am choking on honest counsel.
I think what you're both trying to
The
say...
entire righteous universe, my sex as well as yours, my own inclinations even, is there nothing in this world that doesn't counsel me to put aside my work?
You just shut up and listen for a minute. You're not a whirling dervish of the East.
I won't be cheated with
Will
illusions.
you shut up for one?
Hawthorne, I will have to...
We must come with such clean hands the very pages stink of antiseptic.
You should be forbidden from opening your mouth. You know that.
How dare you? How dare you?
Are you crazy? Let go of me.
Oh, God. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Oh, Margaret,
I am grotesque sometimes. It startles me as much as anyone. It terrifies me. Mark me. He will turn this whole episode into a ballad. Mr. Nathan, I don't...
He had it coming.
I don't...
Don't try to explain, please. One has only to look into your eyes to see the depth of your suffering.
Really?
Yes, more than I have ever seen in a woman.
Mr. Nathan, I think I'm a freak of nature. Really, sometimes I think that. I've never told this to anyone.
Do you know why you've told me?
No. Do you?
Because you sense I, too, am different from the others. Because I see how hurt you are, how wounded. Because, forgive me, I know it sounds presumptuous, but because I see you more clearly than you see yourself.
Yes? And what do you see?
Half a genius and half a little girl. I'm sorry. I don't have many friends for my candor.
No, I like your analysis.
Will you be my friend, Margaret?
Friendship is a very serious business with me, Mr. Nathan. Once I take a person into my heart, he must take his vows within 3 months and then live in there forever.
Done.
Consider, you must forsake all worldly ties.
They're nothing to me.
All comforts.
I despise comfort.
No talking, no eating, Vespers every morning?
Done, done, O sister of my soul.
Come then, give me your hand. I don't solemnize the oath in blood anymore the way I used to. It's a fluid hard to come by in this city. But take care. A pact with Mephistopheles is not more binding or more terrible. And instead of Helen, all you get is me. And let's face it, Priam was better looking.
You needn't be flippant with me, Margaret. I know what it is to have a sensitive heart and to have it daily besmirched by the sordid realities of life. I know what it is to have the vision of a poet and spend your days a Wall Street clerk at the beck and call of men whose only lust is money.
How do you know all that about me?
Don't ask me how. It would break your generous heart.
I'm sorry. Can't you find another job?
I don't want to talk about me. I believe I could endure it. I believe I could endure anything if only you'd believe in me.
I believe in all my friends.
Oh, Margaret, I feel, you let me say it, I feel you could inspire me to greatness.
Sir, if I can, I will. Unfortunately, very little inspiration ever comes my way.
I don't believe that, not for a minute. You are our premier poet. Lowell is nothing to you.
You had something to read to me, Margaret.
I can't tell you what an honor it is to meet you. I have lain awake many nights dreaming of it.
Please don't lose any sleep over me.
Thank you. That's very kind, very kind.
Margaret.
And your kindness, dear lady, I will not soon forget it. I must take my leave now.
Excuse me?
He's taking his leave.
Oh, so soon? I'm sorry.
Don't be. Tomorrow, when I wake up, I will say to myself, Margaret is my friend, and my life will have meaning for the first time in years.
Thank you, Mr. Nathan.
A most ardent young man.
He's very kind, very understanding.
If you like him, Margaret, it's entirely on religious grounds. He worships at the shrine of the true divinity.
Are you jealous?
Of course. Here I am, spending the better part of 7 years trying to please you, and here's this upstart from New York who, with one instinctive thrust, carries off the prize.
You have always pleased me.
It must have been wonderful for you seeing Anna again.
I notice it wasn't so bad for you either. Oh, please don't deny it. It does my heart good to think you not entirely invulnerable. It's much easier to change a man's tastes than his nature.
In some men, I'm afraid, it's the nature that's more flexible.
She is so beautiful. They say in Spain the hotel clerks took one look at her and tore up the bills.
You are a remarkably generous woman. You know that.
For praising Anna? What else can I do? If there's anything more pathetic than a plain woman, it's a plain woman railing against a beautiful one.
One needn't always rail to be mean-hearted. People manage to be petty in 100 subversive ways.
Do you really find me the greatest woman who ever lived? The only mind worth considering? No, don't deny it. I have it from the mouth of the Dark Vision himself.
Then the Dark Vision is a blabbermouth.
He only told me so that he could show his disgust at the idea. He has very conventional taste in women. Do you think me the greatest woman who ever lived?
You know, I didn't like you when I first met you.
Really?
You see a woman stride into a room, adjust her lorgnette, take possession of your elbow and confide with all the innocence imaginable, "Mr. Emerson, I have long since wished to meet a man capable of appreciating me." Whoever dreamt that underneath such an introduction lay such a noble heart?
You were very polite. I never knew.
My opinion improved too quickly. Within an hour, I think. By sundown, I began to think you were the most delightful person of my acquaintance.
I studied for a week, you know, when I learned you were to be there. I was prepared to dazzle you with my brilliance.
Why hadn't you arranged to meet me before?
I knew your essays by heart. I would turn the pages of your book and think, if this man knew me, he would love me. Every word was like a voice whispering across the void, that sweet, extraordinary joy that comes with recognizing oneself in another. Can you wonder I was stiff and formal and clutched so pathetically at my lorgnette? I was scared to death.
Were you disappointed?
Disappointed? In you?
I hate competing with my prose. 3 months of scattered vision compressed into a paragraph that can be read in 30 seconds. 3 months! And of the dry and stupid hours in between, it speaks nothing.
I'm not sure I don't like you the better for your ordinary moments.
You were scared? Really?
To death.
I wouldn't have known it. The way you laced your conversation with biblical allusion and mathematical theorems and Greek mythology and knew all of Goethe by heart and every constellation. I remember thinking, this female Faust knows every earthly thing there is to know.
Not every earthly thing, but female Faust, perhaps. There is something for which I think I'd give my soul. I'm making you uncomfortable.
Yes.
It's only human emotion, Waldo.
What do you want from me, Margaret? What can I give you that I don't?
I want you to read something I've written.
Of course. Is it the new chapter on Goethe?
Not exactly.
The first 3 were brilliant. It's important that you finish it, that you channel your energy.
Dear friend, it takes all the energy I have just to keep my heart from being crushed.
A prophet is always without honor in his own country.
But when it's a woman, she is even without honor from the prophet.
It's very costly to be different.
The worst is being different and not so very different. And what's the point? What's the point, Waldo, when it all amounts to nothing but self-doubt and a very superior variety of headache?
Amounts to nothing? Margaret Fuller's Conversations for the Women of Boston.
Conversations. I'm sick of talking. I feel within me an enormous power, but I cannot bring it out. I'm choking on it. Waldo, in intellect, in sheer force of intellect, I am of the blood royal, am I not? Don't laugh, for God's sake, am I not?
You are terribly endowed with brains.
And yet, their only function all these years has been to push around the wheelchair where sits enshrined my paralyzed will.
Do you know what a wise man once said when he looked at a magnificent cathedral? Show me where to place the first stone, and I will build such another.
That's beautiful. But what does it have to do with anything?
I don't know. I was just being pompous. God, what would I do without you? You keep me honest.
Say that again.
You keep me honest.
Not that part.
Your will isn't paralyzed. When you know what you want, you'll know the way to get it.
I want you to love me.
I do. I take more delight in your company than in any other.
I delight you, do I? The deepest soul to ever approach you was nothing in your eyes but a magic lantern to bring you pretty shows.
You think me that heartless?
You don't trust me. Our friendship walks such a terrible straight path, and you live in mortal terror that I shall someday prove unworthy and drag you screaming into some dark, isolated region of my soul, and there, amid that terrible underbrush, commit unnatural acts upon you.
Dear God, I only wish I knew one.
Perhaps if I were pretty, or softer even. To be ugly and Margaret Fuller is perhaps too much. You too. Oh God, you too.
Margaret, please, don't push.
You, who would have thought it? You fraud!
What would you have me do? Lust for your body? Is that what you want?
No, I don't know.
Margaret,
Yes?
what do you want me to read?
5 columns a week. I'm going to chase fires among the Philistines.
You're not taking Greeley's offer seriously.
Why not? 60,000 people will be doting on my every word. Perhaps I shall forget in time that I really care only for the opinion of one.
Don't go. I mean, New York's not the place for you.
Why do you keep saying that? It's as good a place as any. Better, I'll work there. I'll forget everything but the sweetness of effort and accomplishment.
What about your book on Goethe? You think you'll finish it while you're caught up in the frenzy of a cheap daily?
You couldn't care less about my book on Goethe, which you don't for 1 minute believe I'll ever finish. You hate to see me leave because you know that Boston will be an insufferable bore without me.
Whatever the reason, I hate to see you leave.
Exactly. I am she whom no man loves, and all men miss.
Margaret, you will write me, won't you?
Of course. Losing a friend wouldn't be half so bad, you know, if it didn't always involve gaining a correspondent.
End of Act 1. We will now have a brief intermission and resume with Act 2 in about 5 minutes. Thank you. We'll be starting in just about another minute. Act 2. New York, 1846. Margaret's office at the Tribune, Nassau Street. Margaret is sitting at her desk, drinking prodigious amounts of coffee, occasionally rubbing a throbbing head, and writing.
Women will never be free until they learn self-help, self-reliance. But how can we, when nothing is as dreaded in a woman as originality of thought or character? Not one man in a million, no, not in the 100 million, can rise above the belief that woman was made for man. We would have every barrier thrown down. We would have every path laid open to woman as to man. Yes. Freedom for woman, as much as for man, must be acknowledged as a right, not yielded as a concession. We would have the freedom of the universe, to use its means, to learn its secrets, as far as nature has enabled us, with God alone for our guide and judge. For it is a vulgar error that love alone is woman's whole... I've been working on the book. Do you think women in the 19th century too uninteresting a title? Why have you stayed away so long? Every morning I check the board for a note. For God's sake, tell me what I've done. If I have unknowingly caused you pain, please just tell me how.
You know that you cannot bear being told of your faults, Margaret. You never could.
Only because there is so much in the world more interesting to hear. All right. From those who do not care for me, I do not take criticism well. But from you, dear friend, only trust me and tell me how I have offended you.
You really don't know.
No, tell me.
Think.
What did I do?
It's your continual lack of regard for my feelings.
I honor your feelings as dearly as I do my own.
Certainly didn't act that way this evening.
What evening?
The last intimate evening we had together. Don't you remember? You, me, and all of literary New York.
I thought you enjoyed those evenings.
How could you know that? As soon as anyone important comes in, you ignore me.
There's no one more important to me than you are.
You didn't even introduce me to Poe.
I thought you hated Poe.
It's not meeting him that I care about. It's your insensitivity.
I'm sorry. I didn't think you'd be
You
interested.
never think when other people are around. That's the point. Poe, of all people. That opium-addicted lunatic. I could hear his cackling at you all across the room.
He's wonderfully funny. Who would have thought it? I was half expecting a ghoul.
A sense of humor really goes a long way with you, doesn't it?
He had gotten dead drunk on election day.
How amusing.
One of the precinct captains found him in the gutter in a stupor and dragged him from one polling place to another. The poor man voted 50 times before he passed out, and at least a couple afterwards.
That has got to be the funniest story I've ever heard.
I was terrified all my life, Miss Fuller, of having my living body buried. Oh, misdirected paranoia! I now see that my dead one will be forced to walk the earth and vote for mayor.
You're such a child, Margaret.
That he could laugh at himself like that. Oh, Christ was right. We are redeemable.
He despises you. He talks behind your back.
Oh?
And then to see you laughing there with that drunkard and ignoring me, who cares more for you than anyone.
You do care for me, then?
You doubt that too.
I don't think I could live without affection.
You don't have to.
James.
Check the board. The right-hand corner underneath the article.
When did you put it there? I check it every morning.
It's a new poem.
Oh.
Read it.
Won't you? Du Liebster, I dearly love to listen to your voice.
Invoke thy cruel barbs, ye slandering minions. Play out thy villainous part. Did you think you could wound me, malicious gossip, who does not know the pathway to my heart? There's more. See, you daggers do not make me weep. Behold, your arrows fall astray. She alone can wound me deep, who has tread that sacred way. You think it's funny?
No, I'm sorry. It's good. Very moving.
You stick a knife through my heart, and you think it's funny?
Oh, James, no.
Leave it there.
Please, dear friend, forgive me.
I only wrote it to make you understand.
I know. You were too generous, I think, not to forgive your Margaret.
Oh, Liebchen, how you hurt me sometimes.
It has been so long without even a note. I have been so uneasy. Have you not felt this separation too, a little?
Maybe more than you. You, at least, have had your compensations. God knows I missed you. One night last week, I suddenly weakened and felt that if I didn't see just one more time the only genius in the world who wears a flower in her hair, my heart would break. So I came to the house. You had gone out.
If I had only known you were coming, if you had only sent a note to the office.
Since I had spent each night alone thinking of you, I thought perhaps you too had one night in the 7 that desisted from company. I was told you had left with Mazzini and his idiot lieutenant. I don't blame you. Mazzini is a very important man. Only it strikes me how well you take your consolations.
It's nothing to me his being important, Liebster. Mazzini is a very great man. For 15 years of exile, he has been the soul of Italy. It is for that that I am proud to do the little that I can for him.
Don't be modest, Margaret. You have devoted more space to La Causa than to literature, which is, after all, your job, isn't it?
Every other paper in the city ignores him, or worse. How can Americans be so indifferent to Italian liberty? We, of all people.
I have not come for a lecture on politics, Margaret.
Did you read TC's column in the Courier today?
I fail to see what that has to do with us.
Mazzini's schemes for a free Italy are merely a smokescreen for free love and socialism. And if the Tribune persists in this dribble, let them at least not skulk behind the skirts of a female who, however obscure and ill-tempered, cannot be considered a legitimate adversary.
Little Margaret, you so like being at the center of things.
What? What do you mean?
I'm sorry, but do you know how much this bores me?
Well, why didn't you say so? I may consent to die for human values, but I absolutely draw the line at boring you.
I didn't mean it the way it sounded.
Once, upon a midnight dreary, Margaret's heart was sick and weary of all the wrongs that women bore.
It's just that you never let up.
Noble Margaret, honest Margaret, champion of the weak and poor.
See what I mean?
All her causes overlapping, Margaret's voice was deep and strapping, till she saw a stranger napping by the chamber door, and another's foot was tapping with impatience on the floor. Can it be, considered Margaret? Can it be I am a bore? No, 'tis the hour, nothing more. She continued, never stopping, as the 7th head went dropping, and an 8th rushed out the door. Come back, she cried, her lorgnette flopping, as her brow she started mopping, and her causes gently dropping. Can Margaret Fuller be a bore? 'Tis the hour, nothing more. Her honest heart within her lurching, the lady saw a raven perching on her chamber door. "O sir or madam," quoth the lady, "help this mystery to explore. Can Margaret Fuller be a bore?
All the raven did was snore. I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry.
It's just that I didn't come to talk about Mazzini and Giovanni Italia.
I know. I'm sorry.
I came to take you in my arms and tell you how much, how desperately I missed you.
I missed you too.
Did you? I'd begun to think you cared nothing, that you don't think of me at all.
I have not slept soundly for 2 weeks. I lie awake thinking about you, about the feel of your hand against my face.
And don't you feel me with you in those moments, Liebchen? Don't you hear me calling you in the middle of the night, my soul seeking yours? Don't you feel my hand upon your heart?
Oh, it's true. It's true. I have felt you in those moments. I have felt your soul seeking mine.
Margaret,
Hmm?
I guess you'll have to tell Greeley I won't have anything for him this week.
Oh?
You needn't squander too much of your charm, though. When it comes to not publishing my work, Greeley is always agreeable.
Yes. He is a great man in his way, but not a very literary person.
Tell me, Margaret, is there any of our circle not great? Are there any, I don't say merely adequate, but merely superior?
They are all great, but through no fault of their own. I have this special power with my hands. Everyone I touch becomes a genius. Listen, Midas's affliction was nothing compared with mine. I'll be sitting in a restaurant, minding my own business, and if so much as the 10th part of a hair touch the waiter's sleeve, he'll stop serving immediately and begin reciting couplets.
Ugh,
Oh, for God's sake, what do you have against Greeley? I thought you liked him.
I do in a way, but it bothers me to hear a clod of earth called great merely because it's successful. It belittles the meaning of the word.
Belittles? Words fight for the honor of describing that man. When we were at war with Mexico, and anyone who raised his voice in protest was in danger of being hung, Greeley raised his voice. A few years ago, when half the city was unemployed, and people were rioting and starving and freezing in the streets, and the troops had to be called out to limit them to freezing and starving, when during the course of this decade anything had to be done that was hard or brave or unpopular, there stood this clod of earth, characteristically satisfying itself with so uninspired a project as saving this nation's humanity.
Do you think you could stop shouting at me?
There is room in this world for all kinds of greatness, James. Greeley, in his own
He's
way,
a time server. Can't you see that? A prosperous farmer. He had one good idea in his life, a cheap newspaper, and you speak as if he... Oh, hell. Now we're arguing about Greeley. Margaret, all I came here was to hold you in my arms and hear you say you missed me. Tell me.
I've missed you.
I'll never give you cause again, I promise.
Even when we see each other every day, I miss you. James, I wish...
I wish, Liebchen, how I wish...
Well, if we both wish...
I have no money, no position. I have nothing to offer but my heart. Yes, I know what you will say, that it would be enough, but it's not. It's not enough for me. I need to give a woman more.
I care nothing for more.
You are so generous, so unmercenary. Just being with you renews my faith in life. Oh, Liebchen, promise me we will never again be separated for as long as 2 weeks. Promise me.
Yes, I do, but
No, don't qualify it. I can't bear it if you qualify it. Just say, yes, I promise. Say it, Liebchen.
I promise.
Margaret?
Hmm?
Do you remember the piece on Niagara I gave you? The article on Niagara for the travel section.
Oh, yes, it's coming out this Friday. He's definitely agreed to it.
Forgive me for having been angry with you. You, who alone in all this world have felt for me. Both parts or just the first?
Well, actually, for the time being, I mean, it is a very long article, and at one point particularly, it does get a little repetition. It needs repetition at that point. I saw that right away, but space is so I mean, in a newspaper. James, I will do anything you want, only ask me.
You mean that?
Yes.
Margaret, more than anything, I would love to write that section regularly, to have something I could count on every week. Would you speak
Margaret,
to him about... Ah, Horace. Margaret and I were just discussing the possibilities of...
where's the background piece on Mazzini's return to Italy? He's up in my office and I want to show it to him.
Oh God, is today Thursday?
You haven't finished it.
I've been thinking about it all last night. I have some new insights.
Thinking about it, it was due on my desk 10 minutes ago.
I promise you, it will be worth the extra time. I have most of it. It's here somewhere.
Nothing is worth the extra time, damn it.
The first responsibility of a journalist has got to be getting...
Here! How can I get the important things done when my desk is cluttered with this junk? 24 books, 7 magazines, 9 pamphlets, 2 new dailies, all expecting a first-rate notice.
You don't have to give them a first-rate notice.
They don't deserve any notice. They deserve to be ignored.
I write 10 columns a day, and what I do, any halfway vigorous person can do. The lead stinks.
You call what you do writing?
Margaret!
You haven't written one thing of lasting value.
Of course, I'm not in touch with your Delphic sources, but if my columns last half as long as it takes you to write one, I'm on my way to immortality.
You Philistine! You slave to the ephemeral! What do you know about art? You wake people up in the middle of the night screaming, "Write! Write! Why aren't you writing?"
You want to contemplate, go to a monastery, or better yet, that idiotic journal up in Boston that with a total readership of 12 adults yet managed to fatigue the entire country.
At least there, if I paused a moment to let a thought ripen, there would be none to look at me as if I were a werewolf waiting for the changing of the moon.
So go.
If I could stand living in Boston, don't think I wouldn't.
Look, I have nothing against reflection.
I agree 100%.
But you've got to learn to organize your time.
That's it.
Right, Margaret, right! 50 columns for Saturday, Margaret.
Look at this.
4,000 columns for Tuesday, Margaret. Not since Scheherazade has any writer had a crueler deadline.
The truth is, I have been a saint of forbearance. I have sat by and watched you alienate every theater manager in this country. I have kept quiet while I reviewed books 2 months after everyone else is using them to wrap fish. Have stood still to being the only paper in this city to badmouth Longfellow.
She was right there.
Longfellow, I might as well have pissed on a national shrine.
It did put you in an awkward spot, that's true.
There can be no great art without great criticism, and I will speak the truth.
Speak it. Speak it. Only find enough of it to fill 5 columns a week, and you'll never see me interfere. Isn't that what you wanted?
I don't know what I wanted. Sometimes I think I'm just adding to the clutter.
Your work is valuable. When you do it, that series of articles on those poor, degraded women, it took courage. I honor you for it.
It was treated as an obscene joke by every cartoonist in the country. They had me leaning against lampposts, leering through my lorgnette.
What the hell do you care?
Miss Regretfully, soliciting a literary reputation.
What do you care?
Because 15-year-old girls who sell themselves for food are sent to prison, and the vile hypocrites who buy them are sent to the legislature to write more laws that make the lives of women hell.
You took the bastards on, didn't you? In times like these, what is more important than a free press?
In times like these, maybe no one should be living by his pen alone. Our country has gone mad.
It's bad enough as it is. Don't exaggerate.
Exaggerate? The lust for money is making madmen of our people. We're falling over each other in the rush for the trough.
But you do exaggerate, Margaret. You know you do.
Dear friend, this country is being sold from beneath our very feet.
The plunderers shall not have this sweet land of ours. They shall not. Not while I'm alive.
And when you're not?
Then it'll be someone else's business. It's okay. Finish it.
Horace, let's really take them on. Let me run you for Congress.
So that's it? The Boston Sybil yearns for a career on soapboxes? I need only perch myself on her magic carpet of a tongue, and it will carry me to victory.
I know how the words work.
Are you crazy?
Come to New York, Margaret, and whatever it is you talk and talk about up there, I'll give you a chance to do something.
Do something about the great American literature you're always screaming about.
We're not civilized enough for literature.
I gave you the chance to be literary editor of a great American newspaper. I never promised to send you marching into the Sixth Ward to get worked over by Michael Walsh's bully boys.
What about you? What about when they paid their nocturnal visit to your office and threatened to smash your face in, such as it is?
Margaret, please lower your voice. He happens to be right.
About what?
Why are you always taking his part?
You see, one dare not differ with you.
What part? What is he agreeing with?
Mr. Nathan would teach me my faults.
Only one. You should learn to stop shouting.
My voice is ever soft, gentle, and low. An excellent thing in you know who! I was joking. Don't be angry with me.
I'm not angry.
I can't bear it when you're angry with me.
Viva la Italia! Viva la Repubblica!
Cittadino Romano!
Margherita, Margherita, all of Europe has arisen. Listen, listen to the sound of a continent trembling. Listen to the rumble of a new era.
How do you do? I believe we met at one of Miss Fuller's social gatherings.
How do you do? I never thought to be alive. Never. My most visionary wish was that when I die, my friends would smuggle my body back so that I might be able to rot in my native soil. Eh?
I remember you.
You exaggerate the importance of what has happened.
My countrymen drag the Austrian arms through the streets of Rome and burn them in the Piazza del Popolo. Eh? Citizens in all the provinces are arising for La Causa. The Pope has blessed the banner of the people and convened a provisional assembly to...
The Pope little dreams of what he's begun.
He is a tender-hearted good old man with a very sweet face. I met him once.
He has no more judgment than a frog. But Angelo is right. His heart is good, and he loves his people.
He may love his people, but he's more the priest than the reformer.
Yeah, what choice does he have? The sheer momentum of events will carry him through.
I agree, definitely. He has no choice.
We are sent for, Miss Fuller. It ends the Sotterello in the streets of Rome.
The English, the French, the German press, they had us raging in the streets. Like wild beasts, bent only on destruction. Even in this country, which should have felt so much for us, it was only you who told our story truly.
Come back with us.
I long to see Italy, Angelo, but prefer to wait till Mazzini makes it more generally known how large a part I played in your liberty. You cannot expect me to walk down a Roman street without a soul to say, "There she goes, the great American lady to whom we owe all."
I will make it known. I will tell everyone of what you did for us.
Dear Angelo, I think you must be the most beautiful man in Italy.
Him? Ah, by Italian standards, he is not much better than Greeley. Come back to Italy with us and I will show you beauty. I will show you men.
Why is everyone always trying to get me to move? I hate packing.
No, don't. Come as you are. I will show you the world made fresh.
Can it really be the spirit of my country is alive in yours?
Yes. Yes. Every day, on the steps of the Capitol, the deputies take turns reading the Constitution. Eh? The form of government of the Roman state shall be a pure democracy, and it will take the name of the Roman Republic. And then the great bell of the Capitol rings, and the crowd shouts, Viva Italia! Viva Repubblica!
Oh, Mazzini, how this news swells my heart.
Not only Italy, Margherita. The Poles, the Croats, the French, the Hungarians, all of Europe is arising.
Oh, it gives me hope.
Before we die, inhumanity and wrong are destined to fall off from the earth like the shedding of a primal skin. Our children will read about us in their history books, and we will seem to them demented creatures from another planet, gnawing at each other's bones.
Come, my friend. Political freedom doesn't always produce liberality of mind.
Oh, don't. The fiercest passions are not so dangerous to the soul as such cold-hearted moderation.
I'm going to order some lunch. You want to see those dispatches that just came through?
It can't go on. It can't. The poor have been too long oppressed.
Do you think the nobility are just going to sit by and let it all be taken away from them? They tolerate a constitution only as long as they have to.
The nobility are worthless, but the pressure of things will keep them on the right side.
I don't only mean the Italians, all of them. Do you think the English gentleman who sees the Prince Borghese stripped of his palaces for a hospital or some such low use is not going to think of his own 20-mile park and the band of beggars at his gate?
What can they do once the people have arisen? You don't understand what is happening. The dedication, the self-sacrifice. Servant girls who own nothing rip the one trinket from their arms and they give it to La Causa. Ignorant laborers who cannot write their own names. They sit all night in coffee houses and discuss the rights of man.
Oh, Horace, do you hear that?
You talk like it's up to me.
One-legged beggars in the street who used to spend their lives as human garbage now march with us.
Oh, we are blessed among the generations of mankind.
In the hospitals, dying soldiers kiss the piece of bone taken from their bodies and hang it around their necks as sacred relics of liberty.
Oh, Mazzini, this moves me so. I could strangle single-handedly every tyrant in the world. I could...
With indescribable rapture. Men dance in the streets, women weep with joy, and all shout, Vogliamo sempre quella! Vogliamo libertà!
Did you see him leave?
Pickpockets. Pickpockets who did nothing but prey on men even poorer than themselves.
My friend, did you see him leave?
Which friend?
Did you?
No. When are you leaving?
I saw him.
Wednesday, God willing, on the Cambria.
Did he say anything? Did he mention where he was going?
I'm going to my office. You want to look at some of the dispatches.
He said nothing to me. Would you like me to go look for him?
What? No, thank you.
Good.
Actually, now that I think about it, I remember him mentioning that he had to leave early.
Yes, I had a friend who once mentioned that to me too. I remember seeing him at your rooms.
Your friend?
No, yours. He played the guitar.
He plays beautifully, doesn't he? Sometimes when we take a walk in the woods, he brings it with us, and we sit by a stream, and he plays it so beautifully. You can't imagine a sweeter moment.
Sometimes I tap out a tune with my fingers.
That's very dull music at best, Angelo.
Yes, but you should see me dance. The Sottorello enchants me. A little wine, the warm Italian sun, a woman in my arms. It carries me quite beyond myself. Come to Italy, and I will teach you how to dance the Sottorello.
That's very thoughtful, but quite hopeless. Even Sisyphus didn't have a more thankless task than to try to teach me how to dance.
I cannot speak for him, but for me, I do not think he'll be thankless. Here, let me help you.
No, please, it's fine.
Let me, please. I'm very good with knots. You should not wear it, though. You should never cover your eyes.
Oh, I only wear it for the sake of the cartoonists. It's a decoy. Gives them something so obvious to caricature, they leave the rest of my face in peace. Have you ever seen them?
What?
The caricatures?
What are they?
Have you seen this morning's paper?
I can barely read Italian.
Do you want to see one? Here. There. The Adventures of Miss Regretfully. Regret storms the polling booths. It's not even funny, is it?
I don't know.
There is no sin more quickly punished than to hate to look ridiculous. The commonest ignoramus will have the power to wound you. I don't even think it looks like me. I never wear my beard that long.
You. That's you. I killed the man.
No, you'd better not.
A clean thrust through the heart.
No, under no circumstances could I condone so terrible a deed.
The deed will be terrible, but the doing of it will be great. Will you be at home tonight?
No, not tonight, my friend. Tonight, I must sit in a noisy theater reviewing a bad play about an idiotic woman. This one takes place in ancient Rome. Have you ever seen The Ruin of Oblivia?
I do not get to the theater very much.
How sad. Have you only the fate of a country to occupy your time?
What is it about?
Oblivia is mourning the death of her lover, who's just been brutally murdered by her family.
They did not approve of the match?
No. She's just found his freshly buried body.
Good God, how?
By accident, while planting some cucumbers in her garden.
Poor woman.
Yes. At first, she sees only his hand, but she knows it's him.
His ring.
Yes. She begins digging frantically with her bare hands.
Mother of God.
She sees his face. Ah! She is distraught!
Of course.
She knows now her chances of getting through Act 5 without killing herself are next to nothing.
What, she knows this?
She grabs his knife and stabs herself repeatedly in the breast, as with her free hand she begins to dig a grave next to his.
Margarita! I do not like this ending.
Sorry. It's easier to get a rich man into heaven than a rebellious woman through a play alive.
Well, Margarita, then you must write for me the one in which she lives.
Absolutely. They'll have to consent. What other choice will they have?
James.
Come to Rome with us and we will give you a theater.
I didn't know if you were coming back.
Neither did I.
We will give you all of the theaters. We can, can't we?
What a dear friend you are.
I can show you my favorite cathedral where I used to pray when I was a child.
I would love to see it. Someday.
Not someday, Margarita. This day. Come back with us.
I have commitments here, Angelo.
I could speak to Greeley. You could come back as foreign correspondent and you could send back dispatches.
It's not Greeley. I mean, it's not only Greeley.
What then?
I have my life here, Giuseppe.
Ah, Marguerite, you have your life where you take it. Be brave. Be adventurous. Think of the revolution.
Think of the Sotterello.
My dear friends, I cannot leave New York. Not now.
Perhaps I could fill that post, sir. I'm European, I speak 3 languages, and I have a lot of experience as a journalist. Ask Margaret. I could send the reports to her. She could edit them, add an American perspective. We could work together, Margaret, as a team. It would be ideal.
What are you talking about? I don't understand.
I need to do this for us. I need to get away from here. Foreign correspondent would be ideal.
Away? What do you mean? I don't understand.
Come, Angel. Greeley is waiting for us.
Please, if you could just wait a minute. Margaret, listen to me. I've got to make my own way in the world. I can't live here in your shadow.
Angelo,
Can't you see how important this is to us? The chance to prove myself? Liebchen.
andiamo, demente. Lasciamoli soli.
Speak to him, Liebchen, please, before he goes.
Speak to him about what? What are you saying?
Imbecili, non sono cavoli tu. Spicciati.
The lady is talking to you, damn it. Answer her.
I'll have to ask you not to interfere.
Efficiente.
Want to put an ocean between us?
What's an ocean compared to what's between us now? I can return across an ocean, a matter of months.
Months? Oh, please don't say that. Don't say it.
Has this man been making you sad?
Would you mind your own business?
Efficiente e testa clara. Marce. Se impassi t'andiamo.
I'll kill you if you make her sad.
Idiot. Please, Margaret, you've got to help me with this.
No, don't even talk about it.
There's no future for us. Not like this. I have to prove myself, away from here, alone, without you.
Don't say that. Please don't say that.
I'm going to Europe anyway, for a while. I have to.
What do you mean?
My parents are very old now. I haven't seen them in years. Surely I must have mentioned that.
Never. You never mentioned that.
Margaret.
Maybe. Maybe you mentioned it, but not now. You didn't say now.
I want to see them before they die, Liebchen.
But when? When will you leave?
The sooner I leave, the sooner I come back, Liebchen. How long can a man live without his heart?
Don't go.
Do you doubt that I'd come back, Liebchen? Do you doubt it?
Don't go, please.
Will help me, won't you, beloved?
I won't be able to bear it. Please, I won't be able to bear it.
Liebchen.
End of Act 2. Please stay with us, and Act 3 will begin in just a few minutes. And now, the thrilling conclusion of The Margaret Ghost. Act 3. Margaret's apartment in Rome, 1849.
Oh dear. You don't suppose she's become a Catholic, do you?
Who knows what she has become?
Maybe we should have waited outside. What if she's not even here?
The neighbors seem to be sure she was in the garden.
It feels so awkward.
We could not be in Rome and not come to see her, Sophia.
I know. She must feel so alone. But maybe we should have waited for Waldo to get here. It would have been less awkward.
Who knows if he can even get to Rome with all the fighting?
What? What is as loud as this? Thank goodness.
I was just wondering if he could even get to Rome with all the fighting.
Don't see her. The garden is lovely, though. I'm happy for her for that. She always loved flowers.
Yes, she did.
There's a man working there. I wonder if it's he, her. They are married, aren't they?
Mosier says it's a patched-up affair.
But they're married. They're not just living together.
It is strange, isn't it? With all her pretensions to culture, to be so much a woman after all, to fall as the weakest of her sisters might. I'm not sure I don't like her the better for it.
Oh, beloved, what if she wants to come home? It will be horrible for her. Even her friends will have a hard time explaining. Mrs. Browning says he is 10 years her junior, and quite handsome.
What is there to explain? The woman is a sensualist, a great humbug, fascinating in her way, but ridiculous. To unite herself with a buffoon, poor Margaret, who hated more than anything to be thought ridiculous.
She will not be received. It will be horrible.
Mosier knows the man. He told me he is half an idiot, her husband, lover, who knows what. Illiterate even in his own language. Margaret, who is always such a snob. Really, it's too comic. To have hid her true nature for so long.
We have to do something. She should not come back. She will not be happy with him in Boston.
He uses the title of Marquis, but the older brother works as a bricklayer, and so many years her junior.
We have to warn her. It would be better for her if they stayed here.
Mosier claims that even her manuscript is a sham, that there is no history of the Italian Revolution.
But how to do it? What to say that wouldn't sound... Oh dear, there she is. This is so awkward.
Is he with her?
No, but...
Sophia, how good of you to come and visit. You look wonderful.
You too.
I'm so glad to see you both.
Margaret, we want to wish you the best.
Thank you. When did you arrive in Rome?
At the worst possible time, I think. I mean, we thought the fighting was over.
It is, mostly.
And at night we hear bombs.
The Austrians and the French are deliberately provoking incidents. Today, a soldier blew smoke in the faces of the students and shouted, "Long live the Emperor!" And when a few were goaded into throwing stones, the troops moved in with bayonets.
Horrible. The whole thing is horrible.
And the Jesuits, was there nothing to which they didn't stoop? down to the engineering of fake miracles.
What can you expect from them?
The Madonna appeared to a paralytic boy in a vision and took the opportunity to call for the murder of Mazzini.
What superstition?
Can you believe it? The Mother of God, with a detailed program for putting down the revolution. Angelo says that incident alone demoralized half his men.
We were warned by friends in England not to come, but it was impossible to miss Italy. The cathedrals, the paintings, the fountains. What a magnificent city Rome is.
Oh, yes. I should have come here years ago, Sophia, when I was young. I waited altogether too long.
Margaret, can't you get some relief from your landlady?
That is my landlady.
Nicely, to please keep it.
Bata, piantala! Ibarra un po' si fa la persona seria! Quitatevi! She objects to his mistresses, and so he yells she is trying to unman him and throws the chairs at her. I don't know why only the chairs, but he seems to regard it as a measure of his restraint. She too, she brags to me about it. My husband, he only throws the chairs.
How dreadful.
The Italians do seem bent sometimes on saving the Austrians the trouble of slaughtering them.
But have women here no sense of their rights? I can see how much more needed you are here than in privileged America.
There is much to be done, but it will need a younger, stronger woman to do it. I am tired of the battle with giant wrongs.
You're probably just exhausted by your work at the hospital. The Mosiers told us the good work you do there.
It is the only place I have ever felt genuinely, immediately useful. I would not leave that.
Of course not. You are needed here so much.
Oh, Sophia, you cannot know what sweet young lives the world is robbed of by its treacheries. Today, while writing a letter for a dying boy, I could not keep myself from weeping. He motioned me to bend closer and whispered faintly, "God is good. God knows. Viva la Repubblica." But when I look at them, in the wards, on the floors, in the courtyard, I forget the great ideas.
What does the earth gain from its periodic bloodbaths but a change in tyrants? Men's hearts do not change.
It is not men's hearts that are corrupt, but their institutions.
I believed so once. I acted on it. It was a mistake.
I will introduce you to Mazzini. No one can be a cynic in his company, though he looks so dreadful lately. He has not slept for weeks, barely eats. The skin hangs from his body. And who can blame him? He has watched his dearest friends perish, a pain even Christ did not endure, and he has not flinched, not once.
God spare me from such friends.
What do you mean?
Guess who we are staying with in Rome, Margaret?
I know he is your friend, and very brave, but there is something stern and dreadful in men of such overruling purpose, isn't there?
A more generous, heroic person you will never meet.
And in the cause of their heroics, such men will smite and slay you and trample your dead corpse.
With Marcus Spring and his wife. Do you know them?
Oh, yes, yes. The poor cry out in their anguish, but how dare Mazzini call attention to the noise and disturb you yawning at billiards?
You know what?
They have an idol, such men, to which they consecrate themselves high priest, and God help those who get in the way of their terrible straight path. I have seen it over and over.
Idol? Is that what you call the Republican cause?
Or he only meant
Your
that
husband espoused the Republican cause, did he not? But from what I gather, he eats, sleeps, and goes about his business.
My husband has no depths in him. I mean, he is not at all like Mazzini.
Are we going to get a chance to meet him?
I don't know. I hope he will be back soon. We have been watched of late. He is careful in his movements.
That's so unfair. But still, you have been happy here, Margaret, haven't you? Happier than you were in Boston. You won't have to leave, will you?
I don't know. Yes, I think so.
Where would you go?
To America, I suppose.
Really?
Where else would I go?
Oh, of course, but Boston?
It's not a good idea.
Of course it's a good idea, except you've never really been happy there. You get headaches there.
Boston will seem a small place to you after Rome. That's all she means.
They won't know what to make of Osoli and me. It's true.
But there are more Italians in New York, people who speak his language. Perhaps that would
Stop
be...
it! I mean, there's no point. At the moment, we can't afford to go anywhere.
Have you no money at all?
I have written an account of the Italian Revolution, and I was hoping by now for some advance on my manuscript. But I can't even get a publisher to read it. Dear Miss Fuller, thank you very much for your inquiry of the 24th, but we're not at the moment interested in your account of the Italian Revolution. Too subversive, you know, too Italian. Frankly, we were hoping that by now all you fellows had been shot.
Then how will you even live in America? I mean, what does Mr. Osoli do?
Your family will help you, Margaret. Your friends.
No, I won't borrow. Waldo wrote me from Germany. He will be in Italy by the end of summer. He is going to take the manuscript back to America with him. I'm sure he'll be able to place it. I have details in it that no one else had access to. It is written in my heart's blood.
Perhaps you've been too close, too allied with one side. Perhaps it can't be taken seriously for that reason.
Do you know the documents I have? I have been in places where policy was being made.
You know what might be really lucrative? A personal reminiscence. My Life in Italy by Countess Margaret Osoli. You could include sections about the revolution, as much as you wanted.
What has happened here is not a footnote to my life.
Oh, hush, Margaret. For once in your life, take some constructive criticism.
No one on earth can tell this story as well as I can, or as truly. And as for my own life, I'll tell that story too, despite your lies about it.
His lies? What do you mean, his lies?
I mean his new novel. I mean his plopping my flower in the hair of some asinine pedant of a woman whom he passes off as me.
Zenobia is not you, Margaret.
Bite the flower, I would think that would be obvious.
Because she's beautiful?
That's not what I meant.
She's not only beautiful, she's brave and bright and spirited.
And it's what she's destroyed by. It's what she's punished for. From the moment she opens her mouth to utter her first I, presumptuous wretch, she's doomed to a watery grave. Suicide, no less. Me.
She's not you. You always allow your hysteria to strangle your intellect, your sense of fairness.
Is she not?
Not anything like you, anything. Except for the flower.
Be silent, cried Zenobia imperiously, her face grown rigid in the habit of struggle, her fists clenched in terrible inflexibility. It is a woman's doom, and I have deserved it like a woman.
What did you do? Memorize it? No wonder you never finish your own work.
What? Is that you, Miles Coverdale? Rejoined Zenobia, with her sharp, imperious laugh. Ah, I perceive what you are about. You are turning this whole affair into a ballad.
The laugh is yours, that's true.
Angelo, mio caro, I'm so glad you came back in time to meet my friends from Boston. Nathaniel Hawthorne and his wife, Sophia. This is my husband, Angelo Osoli.
How do you do?
Well, very well, thank you.
Mr. Osoli?
Yes. Thank you.
They're beautiful.
The flowers?
Yes, they are beautiful.
What kind are they?
I don't know.
Angelo is a captain in the Civic Guard.
Yes, that is my uniform there.
Have you seen much action?
Yes.
Charles Albert's breaking of the Austrian armistice was pivotal, I'm told, in winning that country back from the moderates.
I can't believe how beautiful they are. We never see this kind in New England, do we?
Let me pick some for you.
No. I mean, how kind, but we were just leaving.
No, please, let me leave.
No, I mean, we can't stay longer, really. We're having dinner with the Stories. You know them, Margaret, don't you?
Yes. Osoli, too.
Yes?
The sculptor and his wife. You have dropped me off there many times. On the Piazza di Spagna?
Ah, yes, the Piazza di Spagna.
Well, so good to see you again, Margaret. And to meet your husband.
Thank you for coming.
Margaret.
Goodbye.
I'm sorry. I thought I saw them leave.
Why do you always say that? What are you apologizing for? Did I ever say I don't want you here when my friends visit? Did I ever ask you to wait for them to leave?
Would you prefer I stay? I could try to talk more.
I prefer you do what makes you comfortable. I prefer you stop apologizing.
What makes me comfortable is to please you.
Then stay.
But I never understand what they are saying.
That never bothered you so much before we were married. You would sit for hours then.
Then it never struck you that I didn't understand. It never struck anybody. My stupidity was my own business then.
Do stay, beloved. Do stay next time. I dearly love your company.
But you love me more, I think, when we are alone.
Of course. Is there any woman in Italy who wouldn't give her soul for 1 hour alone with Captain Osoli?
1 hour for a soul. My time is not as precious as that, mia cara.
Isn't it? I bargained for only an hour myself, till fate took pity on me and gave me more than I bargained for.
You see, I did come home too soon.
No, no, beloved. I fear for the child, that's all.
It's a strong, healthy baby, Margarita. Just feel him kick.
The world is not good enough for a child, Angelo.
Here, feel for yourself.
I see everything differently now, and I see it as not good enough. The child will have nothing.
He will have our love.
Angelo, even that is not enough. Our world is so given over to greed and stupidity and cowardice, even love is corrupted. We are all caught up in it. All, against our will, we are caught up in it.
Hey, ease on your mother, little one.
Better to die in one of those bombs we see nightly from our window than to daily watch this slaughter, to daily see when he is born every radiant childlike hope drowned and driven from the heart by the treachery of nations and of people.
Are you cold, tesoro?
The plunderers have got it all. Angelo, they have it all.
You are cold, mia cara. Shall I get you your shawl?
Can you understand me, Angelo? Please, try, beloved. Try. The world seems so strangely wrong.
It is God's will, mia sposa. We must accept it and endure.
It cannot be God's will to break our hearts like this. Can it? Angelo?
What, mia cara? What do you want me to say?
Forgive me. Forgive me, beloved.
You shiver, Margarita. Let me give you a shawl.
I'm not cold, beloved. I'm terrified. Terrified.
My sister's doctor is a good one. There is nothing to fear.
I am terrified of dying without having accomplished anything. Terrified of what God will do to me for having trivialized all his gifts.
Remember those two brothers, Henrietta, you saved from butchering each other.
He will be furious with me. Furious.
And Senora Verababchik, who but for you would have caught their sister into gnocchi. And will that be nothing to him?
Senora Verabacik. What is Senora Verabacik compared to what was expected of me?
But you have always had a way with people.
Yes, and I should have used it better. Angelo, I have thrown away my life.
No, amore, no.
My beautiful Angelino, what will you do in America? They won't know what to make of you.
Are we going to America?
Do you want to?
Yes.
But what will you do there?
I'm an excellent captain. Perhaps I can start a revolution.
Sorry, someone's already thought of that.
I will love you until I die.
Yes, no one has thought of that. Angelo,
Hmm?
why do I always end up moving so much? I hate packing.
I was a sculptor once.
Back and forth across the ocean like a fevered sleeper on her linen, and no side of the pillow cooler than the other.
Maybe I could take it up again.
Hmm? Take what up?
I was a sculptor once.
Were you? I didn't know that.
My father, despairing of what I could do, apprenticed me to my uncle. But I kept putting the great toe on the wrong side of the foot.
Oh, where will we go, Angelo? How will we live? Do you prefer to starve in Boston or New York?
What shall we call him, Margarita? Our son.
We could go to California and pan gold.
How about Nino? Nino Giovanni Osoli, after my father.
Will they even have us in Boston? That is the question. Even the prodigal son didn't return 6 months pregnant. They will not understand how we have life in common. They will think us ridiculous.
Maybe I could pretend not to speak English.
They will take one look at you, Angelino, and whatever language you speak, they will know. There are already 2 camps, I hear. One, that I slept with you before I married you, and the other, that I married you so I could sleep with you.
You regretted to sort of meal?
Never. 3 New England lifetimes could not buy that Roman night from me. Talk to me, Angelino.
What should I talk about, Margarita?
Anything. Say anything at all. Only talk to me.
Aha! I used to have a very strange dream when I was a child.
What was it about?
That's what was so strange. It had no story and no characters. Nothing at all happened.
God, it sounds like Boston.
It was more of a still life than a dream.
Of what?
Of a wall in my father's study. Only in my dream I was able to see through the wall to the treasure hidden within. It made such an impression to me that one day I took an axe and battered all of the panels down. My mother beat me within an inch of my life. I carry the scars to this day.
And did you find anything?
Nothing. But years later, a lawyer to whom we rented the house grew suddenly and unaccountably rich.
Oh, non riesci a star zitto manco un minuto!
How are you, Margaret? May I come in?
Yes, please. Si non chiedi la tampoco ti vengo e paga la testa!
I had imagined a more graceful entrance. I must have said something to annoy her.
Oh no, it's me. She harasses all my guests. She hates me because I wouldn't let her kill her sister.
They were going at each other with butcher knives, and Margarita stepped in between them. My wife is a very brave woman.
I know.
Nonsense. She wouldn't have done it. They threatened to slice their loved ones up here upon the slightest provocation.
No, Margarita, don't you remember? It was because she was sleeping with her brother-in-law.
I don't think that's our business,
We found them
Angelino.
slut naked in the bed, going at it like frenzied animals.
Angelo, I don't think
We would
Waldo...
have caught them sooner or later. We ourselves could hear them thrashing within our...
Angelo! Waldo, this is my husband, Angelo Giovanni Osoli.
I have known your wife for many years. She is a brave and noble
There is
woman.
no one like her. In the hospital where she lives, the men raise themselves in their elbow to get a last glimpse of her. Is the Signora leaving? When will she be back?
Angelo,
She came to me when I was at the front, the Pincian Hill, you understand, the most exposed position in Rome, where you could find the strongest men whimpering with fear. My Margherita didn't flinch.
Truly, you are a very good woman, Margaret.
I would have been good long ago, Waldo, if you'd have made as much of it as Osoli does.
I have seen it with my own eyes. Margherita calmed two Sicilian brothers, so pale with rage and fury, that I myself was fearful to come between them. One was coming at the other with an axe, the other with a heavy billet of wood, and all around the women of the family were wringing their hands and weeping. Before I could stop her, Margherita pulled herself from me and ran toward one of the maddened brothers. What wicked man? Would you kill your own brother? Would you leave your nephews orphans?
No more, darling.
Would you wash with blood your mother's house?
Your wife is a most extraordinary
Will
woman.
I tell your mother's heart out, all right, wicked man?
I remember myself once in Boston when she was...
the man and master this foolish rage.
Angelo.
Whereupon he flings the axe out of his hands and weeping falls down on his knees.
Darling.
Oh, madame, you have saved my soul.
Angelo.
I am so sorry. Forgive me.
It's nothing. Please.
Please, excuse me. I am expected by a friend.
No. I mean, don't go. Stay a little with us, love. Please, amore. Stay.
That flower
Sophia,
in your hair. That flower in your hair. It looks just like the one I saw you wear 4 years ago in Boston.
Angelo picks them fresh each morning.
Yes, each morning.
I hadn't expected you for weeks.
My travel plans have changed. I need to return to America earlier than I thought.
Are you traveling alone?
Yes. My wife's mother was ill. She couldn't leave.
I'm sorry.
She admires you very much.
Your wife? She knows me?
You went to school together.
Really?
Well, briefly, before her family moved to Maine.
Yes, I'd heard that's where she's from.
She says it was from your lips she first heard that withering adjective, trite.
I was awful in those days.
So I hear.
Well, I wasn't that bad. Sophia and Hawthorne were just here.
I knew they were in Rome.
Half of Boston is in Rome. The pilgrims are reversing direction, it seems.
The English are beginning to panic. Carlyle says that all he does all day is show argumentative Bostonians around London.
Did you argue with him?
No, but apparently you did.
Carlyle is a monster. None but the great are of any account to him at all. He would beat the poor back to their kennels with a stick. I'll never forgive myself for liking him.
He adores Hawthorne. They stayed up one entire night discussing Satan.
It doesn't surprise me.
Carlyle actually believes in him, you know. Satan, not Hawthorne.
Of course. The idea of Hawthorne is much too implausible.
He liked you too. Very much. Did you know that? He told me he thought you quite heroic. This Yankee woman determined to eat the entire universe as if it were an egg at the breakfast of an empress.
He told me quite forthrightly at our first meeting that I was not half so ugly as he had been led by Mr. Hawthorne to believe.
You made that up.
He came here expecting to witness a moral disintegration. I could see it in his eyes. Ah, yes, poor Margaret. We saw her when we were in Rome, you know. She was squatting by a fire, ripping apart wild boar meat with her teeth.
What do you care what he thinks? All your friends defend you.
No one needs to defend me, and I don't care what he thinks.
I can see that.
But I won't have him falsifying my life.
What are you talking about?
The Blithedale romance.
Zenobia is a fictional character, Margaret.
She's a warning, that's what she is. One of his cautionary tales. Behold, Margaret Fuller, brave and bright and at the bottom of the river.
You're not being persecuted because Zenobia decides to drown herself.
Don't you see? It's the only right we're given if we're different, to destroy ourselves. To drown ourselves, or shoot ourselves, or wind up screaming in some attic like creatures out of Bedlam.
In his own work, Hawthorne answers to his own vision, not yours. And whatever it is you're drowning in these days, it isn't water.
I have seen Italy bleeding and on her knees, and with her all the hopes of mankind. Do you think I'd have the gall to feel my own suffering in the midst of such a horror, except that it's symbolic? In myth, in novels, in every written record, we are severed from our history. Women never see the story truly because we never get to tell it.
So tell it.
I can't.
Are you cold, mia cara?
No. Mio caro, would you mind getting me my shawl after all?
Of course, tesore. Of course.
He fought very bravely in the war. It was a great shame to me, you know, that the Americans did not do more. Our ambassador does not even speak Italian and does business with the Austrians, who have no more right to be here than in the streets of Boston.
I have been prouder of our country than in these days.
Our eagle has become a vulture. We align ourselves with despots, Waldo. Oh, we will pay for this callousness. It will not come free.
You should have been made ambassador yourself.
I should have led the troops. I understood the siege better than the generals.
Ah, all these years thinking it was the lyre you aspired to, when it really was the scepter.
I no longer aspire to anything. Except to understand how the world can be governed by such idiots.
Maybe it's time to come home.
Home?
Yes, home. Come back with me. This isn't the place for you. You look so tired.
I am. Tired of seeing the wicked triumph and the blood and tears of the generous flow in vain.
As long as there is one man on this earth capable of acts of love and heroism, the wicked cannot triumph.
Well, maybe not in Concord. Here they triumph.
Don't be glib.
Then don't give me empty words.
Because you have been faithful to what is the finest in our nature, the wicked have not triumphed.
Me? I have accomplished nothing.
It's lucky the meaning of the age is concentrated in your suffering, Margaret, or I might have to take this as self-pity.
I don't complain. I acquiesce. I have deserved to fail. I've deserved it.
What about your manuscript on the Italian Revolution? I'll take it back. I'll do what I can to help to get it published.
Thank you, but it's no use. Everything I do is second rate. I can't seem to bring it off. I am a wandering intelligence driven from spot to spot.
You told me it was almost finished.
Everything I do is almost finished. On a particularly busy day, God gave me, by mistake, a touch of genius. How he must have wept and wrung his hands to have poured so holy and so rare a thing down into a sieve.
Stop it! I can't take any more of this penance. The ranks of the torchbearers are thin enough without your defection. What are we here for but to give each other heart?
I no longer know what we are here for.
You cannot know how much it pains me to hear you speak like this.
Yes, I have always indulged my feelings at your expense.
That's not what I meant.
Give up on me. I have thrown away with both hands any rights I ever had to such a tribute, forfeited everything to an obsession, a bottomless desire for a man to take me in his arms and love me.
It was not unnatural for you to want what any other woman wants.
If I had taken a stick and broken both my arms, it would not have been more crippling or deliberate than what I did to my judgment. Have other women done this?
Yes, I'm sure they have.
Have other women put their living soul at the disposal of a shallow, self-important jackass in exchange for an affectionate word uttered with conviction?
Margaret, I have no right to listen to this.
Have other women run themselves breathless up and down the length of a man's character, plugging up holes one after another with the cheap plaster of self-delusion? No sooner one is dried, but another opens, and all because if I once had to see he had no character, how could I love him? And if I couldn't love him, how could I satisfy this burning thirst?
Don't you think you exaggerate your husband's faults?
My husband?
He's no intellect, to be sure, but that hardly makes him base.
My husband base? A Soli is worth 30 of you, 100. I wasn't talking about my husband.
I'm sorry, Margaret. I thought...
You think too much, philosopher. To his everlasting credit, Asoli had the originality of mind to want me. Bewildering, isn't it? A taste for Margaret Fuller can only be regarded as among the stranger fetishes.
Margaret,
No, admit it. You've been trying to figure it out. You'll go to your grave confounded by the mystery of it. Shall I tell you? Shall I save you years and years of pondering the question in your journal? Asoli considered me the greatest woman he had ever met. In Italy, apparently, that is not an entirely eccentric reason for lust. I'm sorry. You wonder how we have any life in common.
No. We all have different matrimonial needs.
How can I take him back to America, Waldo? He's 10 years younger than I am. They'll be laughing from Boston to Kentucky.
Truly, he seems a very good-hearted person.
And brave, noble even, and capable of a most unselfish love. I think he will be an excellent father, though he could not speculate upon it, nor indeed upon anything. Thoughts he has none. I had not meant to say that. I am always betraying him. Always.
He is a good and simple man. To understand that is not to betray him.
Isn't it? He has felt more genuinely toward me than any other person I have ever known, and I have responded to his devotion by fearing to show him to my friends, by hiding him in corners and allowing him out every now and then to account for my condition. This is how I respond to the love of a good and simple man, by worrying night and day that you will find him nothing. You have that look in your eyes now that you always used to get when you were in mortal fear of what I would say next.
And you always let me off.
Almost always.
Large-souled, generous Margaret, you always let me off.
He desired me. I couldn't get over that. I knew from the first it was a union in every way unfit, but I couldn't get over that.
For God's sake, you don't have to account to me. Least of all me.
He was so heartbreakingly beautiful, and I was so afraid of dying, Druid, without ever having known.
Margaret, you don't owe me an explanation.
It was to be an interlude, a Roman interlude for Layla.
Truly, he seems a very decent man.
I have such terrifying dreams. I'm on a ship with Angelo and the child. We're within sight of land, of home, and I feel safe, feel that I've come home. And I reach out, I'm so close, I could almost touch it. Home. And then I remember there is no home. Not for me. Not in Boston. Not in America. Not in Italy. Not anywhere. I remember. And the bottom of the ship splits open, and we begin to sink, the three of us, just within sight of land. Why didn't you love me, Waldo?
I did. I did, but something about you always took the edge off it. I would lie awake at night thinking about you, thinking the very least remarkable of the things you'd said that day, enough to fill me with a tragic sense of loss. 1,000 times I'd just about make up my mind to want you, only to have the feeling unaccountably dispelled. I would look at you in certain moments, and it was no longer brave and noble Margaret, but a strange, overbearing, rather repulsive woman that nothing in the world would induce me to have. Then you'd say something splendid and the whole cycle would begin again. I didn't want you then. I don't want you now. But I shall never in my life get over regretting it.
Won't it serve you right, Druid, if I turn out to be one of those women who grow positively handsome in old age?
Margaret.
It's all right. At least you didn't tell me that I can't take criticism. Soli's right. The nights are getting cold. One need only close one's eyes and one is back in Yankee Land.
Please forgive me. I don't know how I ever came to say such things to you.
Dear friend, I have had young boys with bodies lopped in two lying in my lap. Do you think I'm going to pause now and brood about my face?
I think we must be content to make many mistakes, or else we couldn't move. And yours have been the braver ones.
That's true.
Zenobia to the last.
Except we have to live, don't we? We can't leave the world entirely to the stupid and mean-hearted.
We have to live.
I still have my resources, after all. My intelligence will see me through. After all I've suffered for its sake, it owes me one. Yes, one. Can you count to 1,000,000 billion trillion, Druid?
No.
Tell Hawthorne to have Sophia start embroidering that letter. I'm coming home.
You'll wear it, but you won't sew it. Is that it?
Tell him I have a journal of my own. Do you hear, Hawthorne? A journal of my own. Malign me as you will, locked up in the archives will walk the Margaret Ghost to haunt the corridors of history. Goodbye, Druid.
Goodbye, my dear friend. And come home soon.
Yes.
Say goodbye to Osoli for me.
Your shawl, mia cara.
Can you count to 1,000,000 billion trillion?
Only in Italian.
Good enough.
End Act 3. Thank you, everyone, for coming to this 10th anniversary reunion reading of Carol Braverman's The Margaret Ghost.